Hi everybody,
Hi,
I'm Toby,
I'm Kolby.
and this is our show, Good Cooks Know. This is our first season, and this is our first episode, and the premise of our show has to do with the fact that Colby just got married.
And Kolby doesn't know how to cook,
Well, she knows how to cook some things.
but not very many things.
I'm Colby's uncle, and I like to cook, and I've been cooking for a long time. So we're going to be cooking together for the next 12 episodes, and in each episode we're going to learn to cook something really yummy. And the premise of our first season is we are cooking things that already taste good and making them taste even better. So in our first episode, we're going to do a recipe for sugared pecans, and it's something I've been cooking for a while. And as we do the recipe, we'll talk about sort of the origins of it and how we got started. But in this episode, that's what we're going to be making. So they're delicious.
They're very good. I love them.
Me too. Here's our recipe for sugared pecans. So this is actually a really easy recipe, and it's the reason that I started it as our first recipe, because you can take something really delicious like pecans and add a little sugar and cinnamon to them.
I'm gonna steal one.
And they're even better. So, and this is a really versatile recipe too. You can use this, you can do a lot of things with this. So here's how we get started. We measure the ingredients for the coating for the pecans. And let me just show you what I've got here so that you'll think about this for yourself. One of the best things I know about cooking, well, first wash your hands, which we did before we got started today. But then the next thing is, if you can get everything out and have it ready, one, you know you've got all the ingredients, which is really useful. There are plenty of times when I've gotten ready to make something, gotten halfway through the recipe and realized I need to go to the store. So you don't want that. And the other thing is to have some kind of a bowl that you can put all of your scraps in.
Like your eggshells
Exactly.
and stuff.
We're not going to have any scraps for this recipe, but we're going to have eggshells. Sometimes when you're cooking, you'll have a lot of things.
Yeah.
So in this recipe, what we're going to start with is mixing up the ingredients that go on the pecans.
Okay.
And so I'm going to let you do that. We've already measured out our cinnamon and our salt. So this recipe starts with 2 cups of sugar, so let's measure that. Yeah, so this is the bowl we're going to mix everything in. So we're going to hold our measuring cup over the bowl.
His measuring cups are a little weird.
They are a little weird, aren't they? They're cute though.
Chunks in the sugar.
That's all right.
Okay.
That's all right, because we're going to mix it up anyway. And put it in, and then you can shake it a little bit until it levels off, and that works pretty well. With other things like flour, you can't do that. But with sugar,
use a knife.
exactly. All right, there's our 2 cups of sugar.
I'm gonna take this lid from you.
All right, and now I'm going to add to the sugar the 1½ teaspoons of salt.
Just put it in there.
Just drop it in, and then also the 1 teaspoon of cinnamon.
Love the way cinnamon smells.
Me too. Me too. Me
It
too.
just fills the room.
And then a whisk. You just whisk it all up.
Just go ahead.
So you just want to whisk it until the cinnamon is incorporated and the whole thing looks slightly brown.
It smells so good.
Doesn't it? Get a little bit of sugar cinnamon dust.
The best kind of dust.
And you really do have to mix it all up because you want the cinnamon and the sugar to be incorporated all together. Exactly. That looks good. Okay, so that's our cinnamon sugar. So that's the basic coating. And then to make it stick to the nuts, what you use are egg whites. So we have 2 eggs, and we're going to crack the eggs, and we're going to use just the whites. All right. So go ahead and crack the eggs. Let's put the yolks in here.
Okay.
Put the whites in there.
Ooh, I might have already messed
That's
up.
okay. Do you know how to do it? Good.
I do.
Perfect. Okay. And then the way your grandmother taught me is exactly like that, just back and forth. That's good. All right, so we'll save the egg yolk. We'll make something else out of the egg yolk. We'll just use the whites today. All right, let's put the shells in here. All right, one more time.
Let's see if I do this one right. I think that when I crack an egg, I hit it too hard.
It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. Everybody messes up eggs. So there are a few contraptions that you can use that will help you with this.
I've heard a water bottle works.
How so? I've never heard of that.
Like you crack the egg, and then you take a water bottle, an empty water bottle, and you squeeze it, and you put it down on the yolk, and then you release it, and it sucks the yolk right out
I've
of the
never
egg
tried
white.
that. Have you tried it?
I haven't.
Okay, we'll have to try that. One episode, we will try squeezing egg yolks with water bottles.
I'm gonna go wash my hands before we continue.
Okay, so I can tell that your grandmother had taught you how to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to do the eggs. So she did a good job with that. All right, now here's the part that can be fun. I know you said you were looking forward to whipping up the egg whites. So the first thing we do is we need, let's throw that away, that happens. We need 2 tablespoons of water to go into the egg whites. So we've got some water there.
And then why do you put the water in the egg whites?
It just makes them a little bit looser so that they cover more easily. Okay? All right, and now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this whisk, and the whole idea is to whisk it until it gets foamy. So you'll be able to see them, the egg whites will foam up. You can do it fast too. Actually, that's about perfect. So see how they're a little bit looser than they were just when they were the egg white. All right, now, so what we're gonna do next is we're going to coat the pecans with the egg whites. And here's the thing I've learned. There are 2 things about this recipe that I do differently than the way that it was originally written down. And one of the things that the recipe says to do is to take the pecans and put them into a plastic bag and put the egg whites in there and shake them around and then add the sugar, cinnamon to that. So that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, but I found, and this is one of my tips for you, that if you have a good bowl with a good top, that works better. You can shake it better because a plastic bag is harder to get things to get everything evenly coated. So that's tip number 1 for this recipe. That's a change from the original. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the pecans in. We have 2 pounds of pecans. They're pre-measured. So we're gonna pour the whole thing in. And then, nothing wrong with that. And then we're going to pour the egg whites in.
Just right over top?
Just right over top. Perfect. And then here's what I do. So this gets really loud, but this is, I found, one of the best ways to do it. So the first thing I do is I try to coat all the pecans with all the egg whites, and I try to set it up.
It's like a dance.
When you open it up, you'll see this coats all of the pecans.
Oh, wow.
See that? Which works much better than putting them in the plastic bag.
That was quick.
It'll work out, but you got to have a good bowl with a good top. It has to be a top that you can be sure is going to stay on, because you can imagine the disaster otherwise.
Yes.
Okay, then we pour everything in.
You do the same thing?
You get to do it this time.
Okay.
Top on. Yeah, now what I do, I turn it upside down, but see, I hold
Make sure it's
that,
good.
exactly, and I hold that tight.
You flip it upside down. You
And
should.
shake. And you can shake it, all around. The whole idea is just to get every single nut to
Shall we?
Oh, you're doing pretty well. Let me show you.
Okay.
A little more
A
violent.
little bit.
Okay? That's the
So
key.
you have to make that face
You do
when
have
you
to make
do
a face. And your whole body should shake a little bit. That's part of
Basically,
it.
you should convulse.
It's not pretty, but it's effective. Okay, and ta-da!
Ah.
All right, so that's it. That's the whole recipe for how to put the nuts together. The only other thing left to do is to bake them, which you do in a slow oven, so a low oven, 250 degrees, which we've already preheated the oven.
Yes.
And you let them bake for about 15 minutes, and then you stir them up, 15 more minutes, stir them up, so on and so forth, until you get to an hour. So about 4 times you're going to stir them up. Here's the second thing that I changed about the recipe. So you need a good cookie sheet pan. This thing's sometimes called half a sheet pan. The original recipe says to put foil on the pan, which I did for years, and that does work. But the problem with foil and sugar is when the sugar nuts are cooking, they tend to stick to the foil.
Yeah.
So when you get ready to take it off, you got to do a lot of prying. But if you use parchment paper,
Parchment paper is a baker's best friend.
indeed. Well, it's definitely one of the keys for making these nuts not stick to the pan. The other thing is, it's really important to cover the pan, because you can imagine what would happen if you didn't put the pan, with something on the pan and not that sugar. It would take days to get it clean. Parchment paper, the size of your pan. Then you just pour the nuts right on top of the parchment paper.
Give me a wait.
You just pour them right out.
I'll do it this way. We can shake it out and even them out.
There you go. You're doing great. See how evenly coated they are?
Even the ones on the top are pretty coated.
Exactly. And that's it. So then you just spread them out a little bit. Try to keep them on the parchment paper because if they're on the pan. And you just want sort of an even layer.
They already smell delicious and they're not even baked.
Ta-da! And that is our recipe for sugared pecans. The only thing we need to do now is cook them
And eat them.
Exactly. Let's go to the oven. You can see we've already preheated for 250 degrees. That's a really low temperature to cook things because you want them to cook slowly. That allows the sugar to caramelize on the nuts. Right. Okay. So let's just put them in. We're going to put them in the middle oven tray.
The middle one?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Slide them in carefully. And close the door. And that's it. We wait 15 minutes. We come back. We check up, stir them up. And the stirring partially is to just be sure that they don't stick to each other to keep them from. So it's been a little over an hour. Actually, the nuts took a little bit longer to cook this time. This is a new oven for me, and so it sometimes takes a little bit longer. So that's something to know. We're going to check them, and I think that they're done. But we're going to check them using a fork, and we just want to be sure that they seem crunchy. So let's try it. Let's try it. So remember to use the pot holder. Pull the oven now. And you should be able to just move them around a little bit. Yeah, you hear the crunch? That's excellent. I think
they smell so good.
So when we take them out, we'll be able to let them cool a little bit and then we'll pull them off the pan.
Okay, so go ahead and take them out.
Yeah, let's take them out and put them in the stove. Just be careful not to burn yourself.
Just right here.
That'll be good. So we let them cool for about 5 minutes. You don't want to let them cool too long on the pan because sometimes if you do, they'll stick together and they'll be hard to get off. So about 5 minutes, we'll come back, we'll check on them, and then we will package them up. Okay. So it's been a little more than 5 minutes, and the nuts have cooled at least long enough for us to taste them. So you ready? Let's see what we got. That's why I make these a lot.
They have like the perfect amount of salty versus sweet too.
Yep, so you can taste the salt a little bit. And you can barely taste the cinnamon, but it does make a difference.
But it's there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so once they're cool, what I do is I go in, and remember I told you about the foil versus parchment paper? So with the foil, one of the things that happens is they tend to stick a lot more.
So fry in there?
You have to fry them out, but look at what the parchment paper. See how they're coming loose pretty easily? So you just want to go in, loosen them from the bottom a little bit. See that? And then the thing about the parchment paper that I found that's really nice, watch this. You can just pick it up by the edge, and if you're careful, you can pull it up, and that lets the nuts come loose with it.
Oh, okay.
The foil does not do that. The foil tends to stick to the pan.
Okay.
So then you can just use that to help you get the nuts loose. Exactly.
Oh wow, you're right.
So let's see if we can get them off on the pan. Carefully. I'm not getting on the table on the floor. And if there are a few stuck to the pan or to the paper, that's perfectly fine. Just pull them off to your floor. You can hear the crunch.
Good sound.
Sound of perfectly sugared pecans. So that's it. See how little sugar is left here? So that's what you're hoping for.
You can see the caramelization on them too.
Exactly. So the glazing is just right. Alright, that you just have to throw away. There's nothing you can do with that. Although if you really like to, you can take more of the sugar off because that's heat. Yeah, we'll just set that out of the way for right now. So there they are. Completely ready for their close-up.
Ta-da!
So then
Stop eating them.
they will last for quite a while. If I'm going to keep them for more than a few days, and this is more than somebody on their own would eat in a few days, then I put them in the freezer or the refrigerator. And they'll keep for a long time in the freezer or refrigerator, several weeks.
And do you just, after you put them in the freezer, do you just set them out to thaw, or do you put them back
You don't
in
even,
the oven?
no, you don't need to put them in the oven. They will thaw in just a few minutes, so you don't even have to take them out
They
a long
don't
time
even really
before you
have
use
to
them.
thaw.
They don't have to. So just a few minutes before you want to eat them or use them. They're perfectly fine to eat straight from the freezer. And then I store them in something that has a top. It doesn't necessarily have to be a completely sealed container. So for example, these jars, they have a top and they do seal, but they're not a complete seal, like something that's a plastic container. All right, so let's put some in here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just scoop them up and put them in. You see I've got this helper so that we don't waste them because they do tend to fall on the floor.
And you don't want to waste these.
You do not want to waste these.
It just smells like cinnamon.
And as I said earlier, they make a really terrific gift. That's great. Yeah. Beautiful. So pop on. These are old-fashioned jars. See how that works?
Oh, okay.
And then you just push down on this.
Okay.
That's what makes it seal. All right. We'll have at least enough to do one more jar. So there we have them, our sugared pecans. So see how pretty they are? So that's why they make a really nice gift. So when you're making them, there are a lot of things you can do with them. Obviously, they're a really nice complement for something like the salad that we use it for. But also you can just serve them in a little dish if you're going to have folks over, for example.
Like a little appetizer.
Like a little appetizer. They're really lovely like that. They'll go quickly. People will eat them really quickly. So, like that, exactly, because they do invite you to have a little bite. So, there's our first recipe, first episode.
Super
season 1.
easy.
Yeah, I think you can do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so.
I would just have a problem giving them away as gifts.
Yeah.
Because they're so good.
They're good. You want to eat a lot of them.
Yeah, they're delicious.
So that's perfectly fine. It's okay to eat a lot of them too. So what I would say is, why don't you try them sometime and invite me down to have dinner at your house.
Sounds good.
Sugared pecan.
For our dessert.
That's our first episode.
Thanks for
First
watching.
season. Good Cooks Know. I'm Toby.
I'm Kolby.
We'll see you next time.